lovingly caressing each piece of marble with his sensitive hand. He became ecstatic before a woman's torso mutilated by the centuries. See, madam, the refinement, the suppleness of these lines. Oh, what a pity that parts are missing. Out of curiosity, I venture to say, cher maître, why don't you try to reconstruct them? He looked at me amazed. It was obvious that this thought had never entered his mind. One had to be a musician to have such an idea. But, madam, I do not feel able to do it, and even if I were, I should never dare. And I thought of all these small virtuosos and schoolmaster composers who go tooth and nail at tampering, mutilating, and disfiguring our sublime works. If they do not have Rodin's genius, they have more courage. They dare anything. They put Bach, Mozart, and Handel back on the drawing board, and after slandering the most beautiful masterpieces, they dare to juxtapose their obscure name to those of our greatest masters. Pursuing my campaign for the revival of the harpsichord and its literature, I undertook a succession of concert tours all over Europe, later to America and to Africa. In 1907 and again in 1909, I went to Russia. The Countess Tolstoy attended one of my concerts in Moscow. She came backstage after the concert and said to me, "What a pity that my husband cannot come to hear you." I answered, "If he cannot come, I shall go to him." I was immediately invited to spend Christmas at Yasnaya Polyana. I shall never forget the days I spent at Tolstoy's home, nor the hours I played for him. He adored music, and he knew how to listen admirably. While playing, I observed this luminous old man with his silver hair, his sweet and penetrating blue eyes, and I could see as reflected in a mirror the agitation music provoked in him. He drank it, was steeped in it. He purred with pleasure or burst into big, rich, and sonorous laughter. He felt each piece with such intensity that it gave him a new life. Tolstoy was a creator listener. The harpsichord was a revelation to him. He said that ancient music was great and true because it possessed all the elements for being understood by the people. While I played, the peasants, the servants, and his numerous family sat on the steps, listening. During a concert tour in Spain, before the First World War, I stopped at Alcázar de San Juan to change trains. It was 4 a.m. "When does the express for Valencia leave?" I asked. "Oh, that depends on the number of passengers." I was alone. What was I to do? The dawn was delightful. I went wandering through the town, breathing in the atmosphere of Don Quixote. Houses were gray-blue, the sky stone-gray. The town was asleep. There was no one in the streets. I was returning toward the station when, from afar, I noticed 2 male silhouettes, handsome lads, superbly built with dark, curling hair, wearing vests of black velvet on which shone magnificent silver buttons. The men were gesticulating and talking. My heart stopped short. I didn't believe it was possible. They were speaking Polish. Well, getting closer, I greeted them in Polish. Astounded at first, then joyful, they answered with handshakes. "Where do you come from? What are you doing here in Spain?" "We are gypsies. The chief of our tabor is Polish, too. Will you come with us?" I followed them, marveling at this encounter and impatient to see their companions. Behind the station, in a field surrounded by hedges, was the odd and colorful encampment. Beautifully tanned girls with long, disheveled braids, children like crawling black balls, samovars, musical instruments strewn all over the place. My two gypsies ran to inform their chief that a compatriot, vagabond, and musician like themselves had come to pay a visit. A tall and handsome fellow appeared in front of me, snatched his cap, threw it on the ground in the ancient Polish custom, raised an arm, and received me with a joyous yell, "Be welcome! Catherine was only a strumpet." I understood the delicate attention. The chief wanted to assure me of his patriotic feeling in cursing the great Russian empress. Girls, children, women, horses, and dogs all greeted me with exuberant cordiality. Tea was served on the ground. They brought me peasant bread and sausage from Krakow. The gypsy with her nursing child was whining a lullaby. The chief rolled his drum and said, "Play something for us, since you are a musician." But at that moment, a clerk from the station called to let me know that there were a few passengers and that the express would leave. The farewell was as cordial as if we'd been old friends. I promised the chief to come back, and I left. And as I went away, I heard the voice of a woman rising in a song from the region of Lublin, vibrating, filling the atmosphere. A beautiful complaint, profoundly Polish, was floating over the arid earth of Castile, impregnating it with its nostalgia. I dare not open this new notebook. It frightens me, and yet it is still empty. But all that oppresses me, this tumult, this anxiety, this dreadful sorrow, I feel it bursting in me, and I do not have the courage to analyze it or to write about it. This empty notebook tells me all that it does not contain. From morning to evening, and from evening to morning, I am running away from the specter of war, but it does not leave me. This morning in the news, in a small Lithuanian town, they have cut out the tongues of the priests. Others condemned to death have had to dig their own graves. One horror supersedes another, and not knowing where I go, I shut myself in with a well-tempered clavier. A while ago it was with the score of Don Giovanni, but I almost prefer Bach's fugues because of their technical difficulties. This worry of a professional order becomes immediate preoccupation and hides the nightmare, at least for a few hours. This monstrous and gigantic misunderstanding shaking humanity, this whirlpool of hatred, whipped and driven to a paroxysm, is it spontaneous? How can one witness what is happening? Witness, withstand, and survive. Last night, I accidentally spilled some boiling water on my left hand. This physical pain appeased me. I thought, I'm suffering a little, so little in comparison with what my Aunt Ruzia must have suffered in Poland. Who was with her? Where and how did she perish? I claim my part of distress in life. The idea of being sheltered seems unjust and odious to me. Between our two hands lies the fate of a chef d'oeuvre. Its life or its death. We do not play with our soul, we play with our 10 fingers, 10 poor little beings, faultless, clumsy, cruel, who often scratch a musical phrase more out of awkwardness than out of malice. Let us chastise them, whip them, make them conscious. Let us breathe into them our soul, and let us try to play. I was made to initiate, to give public classes. to bring together works that nobody would have expected to see juxtaposed. It amuses me immensely